What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the 2012 mixtape by Slim Dunkin and Debo. Basically, this product is called Block Illegal 2, My Brother's Keeper, and it came out in the summer of 2012. So the thing about this particular product is this probably would have surfaced a lot earlier in 2012, but Slim Dunkin passed on in late 2011, which was a pitch just behind the concept that he was a pretty prolific mixtape rapper. Slim Dunkin was a pretty prolific mixtape rapper throughout the late 2000s, early 2010s. Definitely put out a series of mixtapes, just despite the fact that he was only around for about 2.5 years. He had probably over 10 or so mixtapes. Pretty good pitch to kind of get that. But I look after it, he was Waka Flocka's wingman as far as pitch like that kind of happened. If you didn't know who Slim Dunkin full blown kind of was, basically I reviewed Block Illegal 1 back in March of this year, and that was the particular pitch that he was trying to put on. Basically, Gucci Mane had Slime, which was Waka Flocka. Waka Flocka had Slime, which was Slim Dunkin, and Slim Dunkin had Slime, which was Debo. So he was trying to put Debo on in early 2011. This is the manifesto of doing sequels because basically Slim Dunkin and Waka Flocka did a Twin Towers 2, which was Slim Dunkin's debut in 2009, which is a pretty good pitch to get that. So that a lot of folks were putting out sequels to their mixtapes, pitches like that. Waka Flocka did like Salute Me or Shoot Me. He did like 3 or 4 of those by this particular time. Folks were putting out sequels to mixtapes. So it's pretty wicked and badass to kind of get that. But this was something that was worked on. This is the last batch of stuff that Slim Dunkin was approximately working on around his death in late 2011, which is kind of an unfortunate pitch. But the thing about it is just the fact that basically Slim Dunkin's final project that came out in his lifetime was Twin Towers 2 with Waka Flocka, which came out in like mid-late October of 2011. That was definitely a classic mixtape. I gave that a 10 out of 10. Definitely appreciated that. But there were some months left over, November and half of December of 2011, where Slim Dunkin was still alive. So obviously you would have thought that there would have been some more songs that he worked on. I'm not really sure. I was going to check out Slim Dunkin's Twitter to see if he had any post of him talking about what he was working on in late 2011 to see what he was up to. But I got locked out of Twitter because I forgot my password. So it's just a pitch. I wasn't able to see that, so I can't really confirm if Slim Dunkin had like any updates as far as what he was saying, that what he was doing circa November, December 2011. But I look after it, this is the approximate stuff that he was working on. At least there was going to be a Block Illegal 2, which would have been a pretty good pitch to have fleshed out Debo a little bit more, pitches like that, I would have to say. And there was also like a Dirt Gang project, the third Dirt Gang project that was probably going to come out in early 2012. But there was at least the Dirt Gang project that came out in October 2011. I'm going to get to that one as time goes along. But basically, the unfortunate thing about this product is really Slim Dunkin is not on here that much. It fleshes out Debo a lot more, but I even feel like Debo is still kind of green on this particular product, is the concept of what he was doing. He definitely fleshed himself out more by 2013 when he dropped like his Gangsty Girls and some pitches like that. He really adapted to like the Roscoe Dash and Future and Travis Porter type sound that a lot of folks were kind of doing and fleshing out like 2010's trap. But this is kind of like an amalgamation of sounds. At least it attempts it. The thing about Slim Dunkin is the fact that his particular style of trap music, where he was kind of embracing drill, but it wasn't as full blown as like Waka Flocka kind of was. He was kind of doing like kind of pseudo Future meets like mixtape drill as far as pitches like that kind of happen. But I look after it. The thing about this particular record is just the fact that Slim Dunkin, I don't think he really had as many full blown songs that he had worked on this particular project, because he's only really on about 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 songs out of 22 on here. It's not a ton that he's really on. Probably the most fleshed out song on here that really seems like Slim Dunkin actively completed is All I See Is Money. But it does have like a pretty healthy variety of social bops on here in terms of the production fare. Southside TM88 is on here, some folks like that. There's at least one Zaytoven beat. London on the Track is on here. So there are some folks that were popping in like the 2010s trap type atmosphere as far as pitches like that kind of happened. Just something that I feel like if Slim Dunkin had lasted probably just like another year and a half longer, he probably would have had an album out in stores and probably would have been he probably would have had an album out in stores and been one of the defining trap artists like the early 2010s. It's just kind of the concept. It's just right on the cusp of like change as far as pitches like that kind of happened. Future was on the verge of dropping his Pluto album, which is getting ready to revolutionize things. And like Roscoe Dash was blowing up around this time, some folks like that. It was just kind of a meld of just getting past like some of the mixtape type eras. Most of these mixtape rappers, like Yo Gotti was on the verge of putting out an album, Future's on the verge of putting out an album, Meek Mill was getting ready to, some folks like that. So it's just kind of the concept that a lot of these mixtape rappers from like the late 2000s, early 2010s were getting towards album mode and getting towards that. And I think Slim Dunkin was one of those ones that was going to do it. Maybe not as, I don't think it would have been April or June or August of 2012, but definitely probably by like the winter of 2013, I would have definitely supposed that there would have been a Slim Dunkin album. I just think another year of mixtapes would have been the thing. But it's just kind of the concept. At the same time, Slim Dunkin was trying to flesh out Dirt Gang, get a few more Dirt Gang projects out, and then flesh out Debo a lot further to get him armed up and suited as far as pitches like that kind of happen. But I look after it, the attempts behind it, the Slim Dunkin songs are definitely pretty vicious. I feel like he was beginning to have that sort of pizzazz, and he really didn't need Waka Flocka Flame to back him as much on these particular ones. Flocka's only on here once, and that's pretty much a song that I don't recommend whatsoever. I'd have to say Gucci Mane doesn't even have to show up on this project. So it's just kind of the concept that this basically stands on its own as far as just mostly. I mean, it has Debo on here, and he kind of adapts to some new styles. And that's kind of the thing about Debo is just like on Block Illegal, Debo does not really embrace like the drill type sound of songs like Dunk and songs like Lights On that Slim Dunkin was kind of doing in the winter and spring and summer of 2011. Slim Dunkin was at least trying to get towards that sound and get into like a street single and buzz singles and pitches like that. But I kind of feel like the only problem with Slim Dunkin was just the fact that he probably needed a hit that would have had some crossover kind of buzz appeal on like the chart, something like Gucci Mane's Wasted or Gucci Mane's Lemonade, something to that relative pitch. The same thing with Waka Flocka Flame, getting a song like No Hands or Grove Street Party, some pitches like that. I definitely think Slim Dunkin would have been a pretty apt kind of street rapper to have kind of gotten similar to Yo Gotti around that time. He probably would have had a bunch of street singles, but is looking after this had the attempts, but once again I feel like Slim Dunkin did not really get to really crafting this particular project. I think it was probably in like more of like the 15-20. I don't suppose it's really too much more than about 35% done when Slim Dunkin passed. I'd say it's probably in like the relatively early. I probably would have guessed this mixtape would have came out probably January, February 2012, something like that. I mean, these folks worked pretty viciously on mixtapes as far as that pitch can happen. They were putting out at least 7 or 8 of them a year as far as that would kind of happen. So I definitely think probably by the winter of 2012 it would have happened. But it just felt like Slim Dunkin didn't really have much of the amalgamation towards doing it. But there is at least a song. At least Slim Dunkin did manage to cross paths with Future. It's kind of it's a good song, but it's not as vicious as I would have liked it for it to have been around that particular time. It felt like Slim Dunkin mentioned Future's name on the song, so it did seem like it was at least an official type one to have kind of gotten. Future kind of takes it to like the Zaytoven type days. It's not as vicious as like Future's Montana, Tony Montana, or Magic, or some of those type ones, or some of the Pluto type records that he had in 2011. But it definitely is a good initial kind of amalgamation of what could have happened but didn't. So it's just kind of the concept. But so yeah, there are 22 songs on here. There's 24 songs on this mixtape, but not counting the intro and outro, there's 22 songs on here. And out of those 22 songs, I wound up recommending 15. So it's definitely pretty good. Once again, I feel like the concept behind this was kind of haphazard, just within a sense. It's not haphazard in terms of quality, but it's haphazard in terms of the execution, just because the full-blown packaging as to what Slim Dunkin's vision for it probably was not as full-blown realized. I'd have to say, just because he passed when I think it was probably not even halfway done. I'd have to say, I look after that. Debo at least tries some things, just to be able to say that. I kind of look after the thing about half this project. Some of it's like that classic kind of mixtape drill. You'll definitely get some songs like that on here, like I Told Ya, All I See Is Money, Jack Boys, some of those type ones, just in particular that kind of have that particular type of appeal. But there is some amalgamation with some of the songs that I don't recommend on here. Some of these 7 songs I don't, that just try to circulate like some stuff of more kind of more pop rap type appeal, like some of those pop rap type ones, a little bit watered down type pitch of like what Future was doing on Pluto, just more kind of commercialized and public relations factor as far as that pitch kind of happens. Just the amalgamation and trying to not make it so dark and just morose, I'd have to say, because Slim Dunkin was definitely the death of Slim Dunkin was definitely pretty dark in late 2011. So I just think for folks that were kind of just like, wow, this is it, just realizing that this is the end of an era here, I just tried to not be so morose with it as far as that pitch can happen. But you get like some sounds from Debo that kind of meld sounds of like Travis Porter, Roscoe Dash, like those folks. I forget the folks that did Swag Surf. I forget that particular pitch, but just a lot more Atlanta pop rap type appeals. It just really switches to like more commercial pop rap. But most of these songs just kind of fall flat. They just don't really have like the reserve of really doing it. And then a little bit of Future on like his Pluto days, just with that pop rap type aspect. So it really embraces like, I mean, I think Debo was just kind of blindsided to this particular type pitch, so he had to kind of find his sound, just realizing that his mentor wasn't going to be around, anymore, just to see the direction that he was going to go in. That's just kind of the pitch of what happens with it. But he did find his sound pretty quickly. He didn't stay in limbo for too long. They did at least put out one further Dirt Gang type project, and then Debo went solo, switched his name to D-Dash and pitches like that. But so basically the 15 songs I recommend on here would be All I See Is Money, Double Up, Can't Slow Me Down, Jack Boys, Rockstar, I Told Ya, Feeling Myself, Debo Montana, Grind, Celebration, Turned Up, Jaw, Paranoid, Rambo Remix, and Block Illegal intro. So Block Illegal intro is a pretty nice one. It's like a classic kind of mixtape drill carnage of a song, I'd have to say. Debo definitely goes ham on this one. This is one that does not have Slim Dunkin on here. There's a lot of songs that don't really have him on here. Like I said, he didn't really get around to this product as much. I don't know if it was just because he was just going to be on it less, just in terms of that pitch where he was going to let Debo get more shine, or if it was just kind of the concept that he just didn't manage to complete more in his lifetime. But I look after, this is a song that he's not on. This has pitch energy though, and this is a pretty good slapper. I'd have to say it's a real nice turn up type one. It's a great way of kicking off the mixtape. Takes it back to 2010, 2011 drill. If you're absolutely looking for more Slim Dunkin based on the days in the mixtape type fare, All I See Is Money is like one of the best songs out this particular product. It's an immediate one to go for that just takes it back to 2011, 2010, some of those type pitches when Slim Dunkin was in his prime and stuff. It's like a vintage kind of 2010s mixtape glare. I would definitely feel like about this one. It's a great stunt turn up type song to kind of get, and it's like a minty kind of dunk. Is like a minty kind of Slim Dunkin hitter, I'd have to say. So it's a real nice concept. This is another buzz type song to kind of get here. It is similar to like Lights On. It's similar to like Lights On and Dunk and some of those type pitches, some of those type ones. I Gotta Eat, I'm a Bugatti, some of those type pitches, just the standard turn up type one to kind of get here. Just a real nice mixtape buzz single and a good anchor to this product. This is one that I feel like Dunk actually did complete and threw out on there just to kind of have for that relative pitch as something to kind of anchor this product down. I look after it's just a classic kind of vintage hit here, and probably seemingly one of the most recent songs that Slim Dunkin did before he passed, which is kind of the concept about it. But this is an excellent type one. It's pretty similar to Blindside off of Twin Towers. That was another buzz single that Slim Dunkin put out for trying to go solo as far as pitches like that kind of happen, getting like towards like album quality type stuff. So I feel like Blindside and All I See Is Money are two vicious end of an era type Slim Dunkin hits that have a lot of quality and probably just showcase like the excellent type flair of what needed to be on like a Slim Dunkin album, I'd have to say. But it's a nice and this not definite nice buzz song. Double Up is a pretty nice one. Now this one doesn't have Slim Dunkin on here, but this is like a woozy kind of trap late day malaise, I'd have to say, of a song. This is just like a slog. It's like a slog day, get errands wrapped up type tune to kind of get here, and this is just some basic kind of commute. So there are a number of Dirt Gang members on here. They kind of help back up this particular product, which is pretty dope. Just kind of get that relative pitch, but this is basically just like in a trap sense, just like some woozy kind of day. In a trap sense, Double Up is just like some woozy kind of day. This kind of get tasks done, some pitches like that. The standard day, this real relative, almost like overcast type day, just the standard concept of just an in between type moments, not necessarily a turn up type day or getting ready to get drunk, something like that, or get crunk, something like that. I just would say it's just a basic kind of just standard vanilla day. Can't Slow Me Down is a pretty nice one. This is the song that Slim Dunkin did with Future, and this is a nice pitch. I like this song, but it is kind of somewhat, I don't want to say demure, but it's just kind of more, it's not average in a sense, but it's just not jump off the page as viciously as I would have thought, considering that both Slim Dunkin and Future had some pretty vicious times for 2011. That was a pretty good year for both of them. This one's just kind of a relatively just lambent and just kind of more steadfast type song compared to the quality of what I thought it would have been for their first team up. But this is like a retroactive bop. It's a shame that the Future and Dunk collaborations didn't happen sooner as far as that pitch can happen. It's just a relatively hazy dredge of a song. It's another kind of in-between type day, just some more errands type commerce, just in a relative sense. It's kind of a somber type Beethoven type beat to kind of get here, just kind of the concept about it. It's relative standard type fare. It's some more errands type music, I'd have to say. Can't Slow Me Down is just like some woozy kind of sunset gazing, I'd have to say. But Jack Boys is a pretty nice one. This says French Montana on the hooks. Nice pitch to kind of get this one. This is throwback to like classic mixtape type fare. This is more prime sounding. I'd have to say it's like a jivey kind of trap pop off haze of a song, I would definitely feel like. It's a pretty sinister vintage mix. This is definitely like a pretty sinister vintage mixtape type feel to kind of get here, and it's like a good morose kind of turn up. So I definitely like this one. Classic Debo and Slim Dunkin type turn up to kind of get here. This is the sort of stuff that probably needed to be on here more, but like I said, this is just kind of something I feel like was probably in its early stages, but this is definitely another highlight. It's one, this one that feels like Jack Boys at least feels like a song that was realized and feels like finished product, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept for that. Rockstar is a pretty nice one. This is like a warped kind of get revved music, I would have to say in particular. It's like a basic kind of vanilla night outing, I'd have to say. It's like a woozy kind of emphatic song, and it's a good song to get drunk to. So this is another one that Slim Dunkin actually is on. It's a pretty good pitch to get this one. This has Roscoe Dash on here as well, so it's a good pitch to kind of get that. Good concepts for some of this. Do you like the appeal? This one's another in-between type one. This one's not quite as turned up. I mean, for considering the song was called Rockstar, I would have figured this would have been a little bit more vicious of one, but it's just kind of a more smokage in your system, to standard basic night outing as far as that kind of goes with like a night venue, to standard kind of this is sort of stuff that Future was doing on the regular, but just kind of a more calmer type moment, just a little bit more tame of a night like compared to some of that. It gets you rev, but it's just kind of the concept. It's not as ferocious as like All I See Is Money or Jack Boy, some of those type pitches, or Grind, or like there's another one on here, I Told You, some of those type ones. But speaking of I Told You, this is a nice one. It's like a ghostly kind of vintage drill mixtape buzz of a song. I'd have to say it's like a hollow and kind of leery evening commerce of a song. I definitely have to say it's a good song to get crunk to. I Told You is definitely one of the mixtape standouts. I'd have to say this takes it back to like the prime era as far as some of those type pitches, and it's a good concept. I definitely like the taste of this particular mixtape just because it's a concept of having some relatively fresh type sounds as far as that pitch can happen, some relatively new stuff. Just seeing as far as like the sound of like Slim Dunkin and Debo in that original era kind of got. I do like the concept of how some of this particularly kind of goes, just some vicious type tones, but yeah, it's just really such a swirling and kind of demonic type fare that a lot of this is kind of on here. It's definitely a throwback to kind of get some of this classic type of feel. I definitely feel like the impact of this mixtape is definitely classic. It's kind of like Tupac's Machiavelli project, where it's even if I definitely feel like Machiavelli is a classic, but if folks don't feel like it's that within that sense, it still kind of is, just because the concept is like the end of Tupac's era. It's the last thing he did within his lifetime. But even though Block Illegal 2 is not going to get a 10 out of 10 for me, I feel like the impact of it and just the end of an era as far as that pitch kind of happens in terms of what was going to happen. In terms of what was going to happen, had this era kind of continue, as a good send off. Just the impact of it's more classic than the thing, but there's definitely more than a few hit songs on here. I definitely have to say, so it's a pretty good concept for that. But Feeling Myself is a nice one. It's like a swirling and kind of ghoulish trap trudging of a song. I'd say it's a standard kind of commerce just within a local kind of sense. I'd have to say it's like a basic evening kind of local outs. I would feel like just some concept of getting some gas station type food, some snackage, some of that type fare, picking up like a frozen burrito or some corn nuts, some of those type pitches, getting some smoke. It's just standard fare. A lot of this is pretty ghostly. I like the concept of this kind of being like a haunting type project. I look after it, just really has that relative appeal, just having that ghostly typeness that Gucci Mane Waka Flocka kind of did in 2010. It's the same aspects about it. Plenty of excellent stuff here to kind of get. A real excellent highlight, I forgot about this song. This is another real mixtape standout off this particular product, is Debo Montana. Debo Montana. This is basically like a revision of like Future's This is basically like a revision of Future's Tony Montana song from his mixtape Craze. Debo Montana is basically like a revision of Future's Tony Montana from his mixtape Crazes back in 2011. It's like a vintage kind of Tony Montana similar type tune, like I was saying. Good concept for that. It's like a trap. There's definitely like some trap dynamite, and I would say this has like a vicious and haunting kind of Slim Dunkin flow on this particular song. So he's on this song. They kind of just left this song as is. This is a very ghoulish type one to kind of get here. Do you like the snarl of this overall one? This is probably one, like I was saying, this is one of the best songs on here, apart from All I See Is Money and Jack Boys and I Told You, some of those type pitches. This is more of like that vintage kind of mixtape snarl. I definitely think Slim Dunkin would have been dynamite in 2012 had he made it to some of that carnage as far as that pitch kind of happens. Definitely a Future getting to album quality. I just think that year probably would have been just within the aspect. But yeah, Debo definitely does pretty good on this song as well. He handles this particular type flair pretty good. It's a good concept, like a throwback if you remember Tony Montana from like the mixtape days of 2011. Good pitch. Grind is a pretty nice one. This is another real highlighted one. It's probably one of the best ones on here. It's like a superb kind of mixtape trap boiler, I'd have to say. This reminds me of Future. This definitely reminds me of Future type turn up. I'd have to say Future the rapper, and I'd have to say it's like a money get kind of club hopper. I would definitely feel like. Grind is just another standard mixtape hitter, just another highlight off the particular early 2010s type sound that had that relative pitch, just stock and factory as far as the pitch can happen. But this is an extreme highlight. I'd have to say it's standard and like the quality of how it does it, but it's just another. It basically is a blistering type one. It's definitely one of the ones to go for immediately. I'd have to say, but Dunk is not really on this one. This would have to say, but. Celebration's a pretty nice one. There's like a more poppy kind of commercial mixtape breeze of a song. I'd have to say it's like a late day kind of hop and bop, I'd suppose. Just kind of done with work shit, but just kind of being out and about, not necessarily going straight home. Some pitches like that. Just a good concept, kind of turn up a bit, or at least figure out something to do. Chat a little bit, just mingle, some pitches like that. Just kind of head to a club, some of that type fare. Just go out and socialize, mingle a bit as far as that pitch kind of goes. It's basically kind of poppy type one. It's another one that Slim Dunkin is on. It's the Debo nice highlight to kind of get here. This is one of the more poppy type ones that works pretty well. And this particular song definitely reminds me of Future, I'd have to say, especially from like the Pluto days. It's the pitch like that. It's not, this project doesn't bite Future full blown, but it's just kind of concept. It has a lot of similarities just because I feel like the sounds that were I mean, they didn't quite meld as much in like the first half of 2011, but I think these sounds were eventually going to amalgamate as drill started to. I don't know if drill would have gotten swamped out if Slim Dunkin wouldn't have died and Waka Flocka wouldn't have quit rap music as far as pitch like that kind of happened, and like this, the drill sound would have kept going, and just seeing what the evolution of that could have been in like 2012, 2013 had Slim Dunkin and more of the mixtape scene lasted longer. But I look after it, like it would have been interesting to see Future sound kind of meld with like the Waka Flocka and Slim Dunkin and Gucci Mane type sound as far as that pitch kind of went, because that was kind of something that kind of took a cripple when this particular thing kind of happened. Gucci Mane went to prison, got arrested throughout 2012, 2011 pitches like that, and some of that type there. Waka Flocka quit after Slim Dunkin died, or at least quit putting out albums. It was just kind of the pitch behind it, but let's look after it. So Turned Up is a pretty nice one. It's like a quality kind of evening excitement of a song, I'd have to say. This reminds me of Roscoe Dash Breeze, I would definitely feel like. This is like a vintage 2010 type feel, I'd have to say about this one. It's a pretty nice one to get crunk to, so I do appreciate this one. This is definitely another nice one to kind of have that aspect of just like early 2010s type mixtape buzz as far as that commercial kind of bite kind of goes along with it. But yeah, Slim Dunkin's not on this song either. Jaw is a pretty nice one. It's like a buzzing kind of night outing energy, I would say, about this in particular. It's like a good social mid-pace kind of house party noise that had suppose, and it's like some regular craze to kind of have. So that's the thing about this particular project is not a lot of this is not really house party type bound. I kind of feel like there's definitely some ones on here. There's plenty of good nightlife as far as that pitch kind of happens, but I feel like the concept behind this project was just trying to cross over into the commercial market and get past like the underground type fare and the mixtape kind of street singleness. I mean, Slim Dunkin was at least putting out street singles like All I See Is Money and Blindside and some of those type pitches and Lights On some of those type pitches throughout the second half of 2011. But I kind of look after it. Just I think it was kind of aiming to start getting to album mode. Like I was saying, all those folks, Yo Gotti, Future, Meek Mill, all those folks were starting to get towards that. So it's just kind of the concept. It's like, all right, we're sick of the games. Time to start getting towards it and start making towards some of this noise here. There just weren't as many house party songs on this particular project. I look after the localized typeness. A lot of this was just a lot more spicy turn up. Songs like Grind and Debo Montana, I Told Ya, and Jack Boys and All I See Is Money. Some of those type ones definitely had like a more kind of like this feels like an album, I would have to say. It's this kind of concept. It feels more like an album, just the sort of pitch. Just the fact that this project is free is pretty bona fide just within that aspect, because there's a lot of the beats on here are really excellent as far as that pitch kind of happens. This kind of melds like mid 20, it's kind of like an early taste of what would happen with mid 2010s trap as far as that Instagram life and that sort of fare. I kind of look after it. It just still has like some of that mixtape vibe, but it's just not as much. It has a few buzz songs, but it just doesn't have the house party moments like Menace to Society kind of did, and like a little bit of Block Legal, some of that type of pitch. It's not as much localized. I mean, there's a little bit of Dredge on here, a little bit of Work Shift. Just got done with Work Shift and Unwind, some Aaron's type tunes like Double Up and Can't Slow Me Down, some of those type pitches, and a little bit of like Feeling Myself, some of those type pitches. But I just look after it. It's more concerned with like the level up and like heading to like full blown stunt and floss type music. But Jaw's pretty nice one for house party type fare. Debo does this one by himself, pretty good pitch. Paranoid's a pretty nice one. It's like a syrupy kind of trap buzz noise, I'd have to say, pretty similar to like Future's Pluto days. I would definitely feel like this is another Debo solo song. Slim Dunkin's not on this one. It's like a pseudo kind of trailblaze cut. This is kind of the concept that Debo was pretty good chameleon around this particular time. He adapted to like the sounds like 2010s trap pretty well. Like I said, he wasn't really a part of that drilled type noise as much, I'd have to say. So he just took to like the concept of this kind of a meld of like Roscoe Dash and Future, some of those type folks. That's what he was more working on in like 2012, around this time, late 2011 even, I'd have to say. That was the aim from his angle, is to talk about him. I mean, I definitely think Slim Dunkin was on the verge of going solo. I'd probably say like another 3 or 4 mixtapes, he probably would have had like another album out, but Debo was kind of more in like the pitch of kind of having like a Roscoe Dash and kind of like Future type tone, just trying to aim for something more commercial and just more kind of gloss towards it. But Rambo Remix is a nice one. This has Waka Flocka on here. It's pretty good pitch for that. This kind of reminds me of like Dunk and like Lights On, some of those type pitches. This is like a standard kind of trap turn up that like Gucci Mane, those sorts of folks, the mixtape rappers, are kind of doing throughout 2011. Classic kind of throwback type tune here. There's like a swirling and kind of dark demolishment of a song. I'd have to say it's like a vintage kind of trap snarl about this particular one. Definitely needed a Slim Dunkin verse on here, but this song still particularly haunts pretty well. It's pretty good pitch. This is another of the album standout. I just wonder where the original Rambo song went, if that was on like the Dirt Gang project or who particularly did that one. It says that Day Day did that particular song, so I don't know. I'd have to check out Day Day's project to see if where that particular song originated from. It's a pretty good pitch to kind of see that Day Day was in Dirt Gang, so that's the pitch behind it. So yeah, me basically recommending 15 songs out of 22 on here. I'm gonna give this mixtape like a 7.75 out of 10. I'm raising the score just because it is a pretty swirling highlight. I look after the quality, considering that this is Slim Dunkin's swan song as far as pitch like that can happen, which is a vast unfortunate thing. It's just kind of concept of this. Just too bad he wasn't able to get towards like fleshing out his mixtape career and getting towards the album stuff, because I definitely think a Slim Dunkin album would have been pretty extreme and awesome, especially seeing what he could have continued to do for rap music in 2010's trap, eventually crossing further paths with like Future Sound and some of these more type cats like Migos and some of these type folks that were blowing up in like the 2010s trap and getting towards that would have been an excellent type thing. To got into some of that. Look after 7.75. The social score I'm going to go ahead and give like an 8.75 to. I feel like there's enough kind of bops on here just to be able to have. The reason why the social score doesn't get a higher score. The reason why the social score doesn't get a higher score is just because Slim Dunkin wasn't on enough of these songs. I mean, I know that that's not as much full blown his fault because he passed before he was able to complete it, but I just question. That's about the only real natch is just because Slim Dunkin was definitely a star on this particular project. Every song he's on, he definitely stole the show on, or at least had a pretty extreme quality verse. Debo definitely did some excellent type stuff on here. He had a burgeoning type personality. He was on the verge of blowing up in a different type fashion, being more pop rap and more like Roscoe Dash and Future and like his Pluto days, of just more pop rap and more commercial oriented type stuff. But I just feel like the melding of these particular sounds was good. It definitely has some social aspects. There's plenty of good nightclub bounce. Like I said, there's not a ton of residential type noise. There is some mid-pace kind of in between day, just errand running pitches like that, but for the most part this is more kind of getting ready to start. I just feel like these sorts of mixtape type fare would have been a lot more glossy, and it really is a steal that these products were free just based on that aspect, because you're basically getting like at least 5, 6, or 7 commercial bops on here that just kind of had like the impact of something that probably could have been on albums. That's this kind of thing. But 8.75 social. In terms of the future, that's kind of difficult because Slim Dunkin is deceased. Like I said, Debo has at least put out a series of products. I'm going to get to some more of his products down the road as far as that particularly happens. But this is just kind of the concept. This is the most recent Slim Dunkin project here. There is at least another Dirt Gang project, and I still actually do have 2 more Dirt Gang projects to get to. There are some more Slim Dunkin projects I'm going to review, like Twin Towers 1. There might be like a couple other loosey Slim Dunkin projects as well, but that's the concept of it. But yeah, this is pretty overall heralded. Like I said, the impact of this mixtape is definitely classic. This is definitely like from the classic mixtape era of like the early 2010s. This is a standout, and this is one you definitely need to go for immediately. But this is kind of a somber kind of swan song about it, just because you don't get more love like this in incredulous type pitch.